my
Yeah.
life doesn't look nothing near what it looked like when I was 500 pounds or 550. Um, so that's lifestyle change. Oh, I could look at, there's so much more to it than just I went on a diet or I started exercising, right? It's a lot of that. Are you guys thinking about that sort of things, those sort of things with folks? And again, I really like what you're talking about, making it fun. But for somebody who's in dire straits, who needs to lose massive weight, are you guys thinking about stuff that's outside of just a meal plan and exercise?
Yeah, I mean, even still, I don't think that we would start with a meal plan and exercise. I mean, the thing is, I would have to I'm not in a position, I would say, and I don't think Jason is either, to tell someone that they should lose weight. And I think that that's a difference between how we feel and how a lot of trainers maybe feel, is that if somebody is 500 pounds and they are not asking me how to lose weight, I'm not telling them how to lose
Sure.
weight.
Yeah.
I don't think that's an appropriate thing for me. If they're comfortable in their body, that's great. I want them to feel good. But if somebody comes to me and says, I'm 500 pounds and I'm uncomfortable, I'm not happy in my body, I want to lose weight, that's a different story. But I think that that as just a starting point is important, because people are being told that their bodies are wrong when they might not feel bad in their own bodies. And so that I just want to sort of like lay out first and foremost. And then if somebody is like, no, this is something I really want to do, we still are going to take a more sustainable approach, because I don't know your exact experience, but it sounds like you have done diets and then lost weight and gained weight back. And that's so common. And yes, you might be able to lose weight faster with a more extreme diet, but or exercise regimen, but you're going to then most likely not be able to maintain that. So a slower approach, like Jason was saying, it still does feel like the best approach to help somebody actually maintain this for the rest of their lives.
I totally agree. I think there's some science that suggests that people who lose weight quickly initially might tend to be motivated by it and therefore stick with it in the long term. But all of the people who stick with it in the long term wind up going, or from what I've seen, I haven't seen anybody that lost, 200 pounds in a year and then was just fine and everything
Mhm.
was dandy and there were no issues and they went back to their normal life and didn't change anything and kept it off. That's like ultra rare. And for the majority of folks who, from my experience and the majority of folks who I've talked to, once you have lost a good amount of weight, then it gets really slow, right? Then it's like
Yeah.
fine tuning and figuring out, and like you know, anytime I'll go for an extreme now, if I'm like, if I have a job and it's like, oh, I have to look really ultra athletic in this, I'm going to do something fast. That weight's coming back. I just know it is, that's part of the equation.
And that's really helpful for people listening to hear, because that is like it's not to say that an extreme diet doesn't work in the short term. Like if you're trying to, and the examples we always give are like, most people aren't actors. Most people aren't bodybuilders. Most people aren't doing this for their profession, so they don't need to take those extremes. Sometimes you do. Sometimes in rare cases you might have to do that, but like you just said, that's not actually sustainable, and it's not actually going to lead you to the life that you think it's going to lead you to. It's going to be a very short period of time.
Yeah, I was talking to a guy a couple last week, and the analogy that I think I worked out in my head that made the most sense is like, if you go into it thinking about a marathon as 100-yard dash, you're not going to finish. You can't run a marathon at sprint speed. But if you
Exactly.
go into it thinking about a marathon and thinking, I'm going to run fast and hard for the first 100 yards, but I can't overdo it because I still know I have, 25 miles after that to run. And I'm going to slow down to a pace that I can do it. That to me seemed like but again, we're talking about people with who, I think that's the problem, is that there's so much like, you wake up one day and you go like, I want to lose 100 pounds. And it's just almost like your skin is crawling. Like you just want to like peel it off and step out of it. And I completely empathize with that feeling because I've experienced it many times. I could still wake up today and have that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's not unusual, but I think that you got to fight that because that's a strategy that I've only failed with.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we That kind of like reminds me of something. When we were first starting to develop our approach earlier on, sometimes we'd have people come into the gym and they were really gung ho, really excited, really to like just to get out of the gate on a fast note, just like you were talking about. And we actually, looking back on it, did them a disservice because we would say, you know what? Instead of working out 5 times a week, I know you really want to work out 5 times a week right now. Let's work out 3 times a week. That's going to be a little bit more sustainable for you. We didn't meet them where they were at. They wanted to work out 5 times a week. They had the time. They were able to prioritize. We should have capitalized on that sort of motivation that they had at that time, that spark that they had. So right now, our approach right now is different because we've now defined being reasonable as very individual.
Right.
Reasonable to a 20-year-old is totally different from reasonable for a 50-year-old. And
Sure.
so that 20-year-old, it's totally reasonable for them to work out 6 days a week, 2 hours at a time, but that's going to be unreasonable for the 60-year-old or even the 30-year-old with different life circumstances. And so before we kind of had a little bit more of an agenda to kind of really pace people, but now we try to meet people where they're at, regardless of where they are on the spectrum.
Right. You're just not taking them and going like, "Oh, you thought you'd get away with this. Well, it's 10 times that. You're gonna kill yourself every day, and you won't be able to
Yeah.
do anything else but come and work out with us." Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's good.